Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you're all finding the show interesting. I'm very pleased to say we're having a fireside chat, although there's no fire. I'll call it a TV chat today with Dan from HollywoodBowl. I'm really pleased that you could join us. Thank you very much for coming through. Just how are you finding the show so far, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, as always, there's lots to learn, lots to see. I've been lucky enough to come. This is my third time here now, and year on year, you just see more and more innovation, more and more great speakers. It's an awesome opportunity as well to just connect with industry peers, see some of my vendors, see some actual people I work with in person outside of a Teams call for once, which is quite nice. So, yeah, it's a really good show. Looking forward to exploring a bit more later on this afternoon and learning a bit more.
Absolutely, and it's massive. Like you say, there's so many things and there's so many names. It feels a little bit intense. But for the people who's kindly joined us today, it would be fantastic if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, Dan. Introduce them to HollywoodBowl. Hopefully, most people have actually taken part of it. If not, go and try HollywoodBowl, and I'm sure that will promote you in.
Yeah, great. Yes, so I've been with HollywoodBowl now for coming on 2.5 years, and stepped into the role to kind of look at security and compliance. For those of you who don't know HollywoodBowl, we're the largest 10-pin operator in the UK. We've got somewhere around 80 sites across the UK now. We've also got Splitsville, which is our Canadian branch of the business out in Canada as well. We've got multiple activities out in Canada as well, not just bowling. They do a few more things than us as well. But if you haven't been to one of our centres, get yourself down and get bowling.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you, what's your top score?
Shockingly low, unfortunately. I don't think I'm allowed to say my score, otherwise I'll be out of a job.
Fair enough. That's not what I heard. I've heard you're a professional, so there you go.
Maybe one day.
No, fantastic. Now, we've seen a lot of challenges in the industries around security. We've got the Marks and Spencers that's in the news every day.
Yeah.
What will be interesting in your industry, what are the wider challenges that you are seeing at the moment in your industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, in a broad sense, it's really easy to see the challenges that we will face. I think every business faces ultimately the same challenge, and that's business continuity, business resilience. Okay, we need to continue trading, and like you just said, turn on the news, and you're going to see a breach from somewhere. The public and private sector. There's constant headlines, whether it's hospitality chains ransomed or 6-figure fines for councils. Go on the ICO website and you can just read all of the breaches that are occurring, and even to the most extreme. We're seeing businesses completely crippled. So this is it's a wide challenge that we all face, and that kind of challenge it hits the bottom line multiple times. You've got that lost trade off the bat straight away. You've got your recovery. You've got the erosion in trust as well, which is a really big point. And myself, HollywoodBowl, and I'm sure most other businesses, we don't really have an appetite to be the next cautionary tale. I don't want to feature on the 10 o'clock news, and I'd certainly like to keep my job. So those are kind of the broad challenges that we all see that we face. But in HollywoodBowl as well, we're like any other business. We face our own independent challenges. When I stepped into the role, like I say, coming on a couple of years ago now, the estate was growing, continues to grow. And every time we have a new site come on board, that's a new slice of network. It's new endpoints, it's new cloud services, it's more team members. And, they've got work to do, and who knows what they're doing. And sometimes, so there's your attack surface increases all the time. And attacks are constantly evolving as well to take advantage of that surface, but my headcount doesn't evolve. I don't expand as much as our sites and our attacks do. So that's one of the challenges that we face. And initially there was the challenge of what I like to think of as legacy. Okay, the way that we were built, not really grounding ourselves for the future. You know, not looking towards modern solutions and modern ways of working. We had, for example, AV sitting here siloed, log collector sitting here siloed, manual patching sitting somewhere else, maybe done by a third party. And we kind of lost ownership, lost oversight, lost that control of really being able to verify our environment.
Yes.
I always like to say, if you can't detect something, if you can't protect something, and if we don't have eyes on to everything and have that real-time information, we lose that kind of control. These independent systems, whilst I don't criticize them independently working, there's some great solutions out there. When they're sitting independent from each other, there's no story between them. There's no correlation between what one surface is saying to another surface, and we need that kind of holistic unity between our systems. And so the challenge really was thinking about, well, is this the right strategy moving forwards? Should we continue stitching together solutions?
Yes.
And ultimately, the answer is no. It's cheaper and more efficient to pivot and move away from that legacy and embrace this modern way of working. And this is all playing out as well on a threat landscape that is 24/7.
Oh yes.
And that's the worry. Threats, they don't clock out. And I like to go home and try and get some sleep and stuff. And I can't constantly monitor in my environment. I need tools and solutions that are going to do that for me. So the challenge really, if I had to summarize what the main challenge is risk reduction. How do I reduce my risk? The answer is, in that scenario of those challenges, it's very difficult to reduce that risk because I can't see what that risk even looks like, if I can see things, if I can verify things, then I can actually reduce that risk. And those are the challenges that I think we need to overcome.
Absolutely, and I totally understand. It's identifying those risks and then being able to quantify those risks and then making informed decisions on how do we mitigate those risks moving forward.
And that story is really important. We're going to see these things in our environment, but what's the actual context of it? What's the risk behind this, and how are we going to respond to that? And you need that kind of systems in place to be able to do that.
And I think you're very positive. And actually, just thinking about it, you mentioned you joined 3 years ago. Into this role, and this was a new role at HollywoodBowl to have it in place. But that's the first step that the organizations take, is that forward thinking. We recognizing that risk, employing the individual, and you're just not being employed to take the bullet, as I like to say, where we all get fired, when we get hacked.
Well, my director's looking at me. He might say otherwise, but
he's probably read the risk and decided he needs somebody to stand there and take the bullet for him. So I'll call you the bodyguard from now on for the organization. But I think it's that challenge that we are seeing. And for you as an organization, you've been on this journey since you joined for 3 years. You've seen the changes. You mentioned that holistic view. And I'm aware that you've decided on a Microsoft first approach. But what would be very interesting, especially for the audience who may have seen that before, considering it, or that maybe they are on their own journey, what was your thinking? How did you decide to adopt a Microsoft first approach?
Yeah, sure. Well, really, it was, how do we address those challenges? What is the best way to overcome those obstacles that we're facing? And for me, I've always been a little bit of a Microsoft fanboy, to be quite honest with you. I like things that work, okay? But the real kind of point for me is I need the platform that sees the most data, okay? These complexities that we face with fragmented telemetry, we needed a simplified stack, okay? I needed to move away from those isolated solutions that don't talk and bring it all into one ecosystem that I can control, operate, and I can see all the time, And it's really about aligning your wider objectives as well. So security, compliance, productivity, okay? They can all live in that same system if you're taking that approach of going, well, what are our objectives?
Yes.
What do we really want to achieve? And so for me, it was an easy decision to say, Microsoft's probably going to solve this for us. I'm going to leverage all the good work they're doing and just ride that train, to be honest with you. So I've kind of looked at it in a few ways as to why Microsoft. So, you know, with my position, obviously security is going to take that center stage for me. And it's that integration of that end-to-end life cycle, okay? So our identity, our devices, our data, our cloud, our infrastructure, all feeding together, all talking together, all with their telemetry feeding off into Defender and then out to Sentinel, correlating the entire story of an attack. So, you know, it's that single pane, okay? I've got threat detection and threat response all in the same place, you know. And a good example of that is if you look at Defender for Endpoint, Entra ID conditional access, and then Sentinel. So really, a threat can be contained at that level before a SOC analyst needs to even step in front of that. I can rely on all of that telemetry, understanding that, and letting Microsoft do the work for me a little bit, you know. So I think security is really a driving force for why Microsoft first is a really, really good strategy. But there's also just looking at what it is you're doing at the moment. I think, you know, many organizations, they face the same challenges, and it's risk reduction balanced with cost reduction. Okay, that's always going to be something that you're facing. And really, it's about sweating your licenses, really making them work for you. You know, we were in the same position as many are, that when I joined, our license sheet was a bit over the place, a bit hit and miss. You know, it focused on what people needed, but no real wider objective. So it's almost like, I like to think of it as a Swiss Army knife. Okay, you've got Defender, you've got Purview, you've got Sentinel, right? These are all blades that are just sitting in the army knife, right? And it's like just flipping out the screwdriver and just using that, when actually you've got all these tools at your disposal. So you use your licenses correctly, you can use all your tools correctly as well. And with Microsoft as well, you know, their fabric is built on identity. Right? And as we know, like the shift to security is the perimeter of that now is identity. Okay, that's where that security leads to lay. It leads to follow the user to wherever they go, wherever they're working, whatever device they're on. You know, so that Microsoft approach is built on that foundation. I think, you know, secure access anywhere. So that was a real kind of win for us as well. And kind of just to finalize a little bit as well is operational simplicity. Okay, one portal, one language, one vocabulary, but zero blind spots. Okay, so root cause analysis is a couple of clicks away. It's a dashboard away. There's no swiveling and pivoting between systems, then trying to bring that all together. It's all there in your timeline already for you to see, you know. And finally, I would probably say that it's about reducing friction. Okay, so I don't want to rely on forklift upgrades or change Windows. Okay, what I want to rely on is Microsoft's roadmap. Join that and ride it. Rely on them doing that work for me and elevating up my position, really.
And I think you've touched on a lot of positive points there. And as you mentioned, the zero trust, that identity, the whole Microsoft cybersecurity reference architecture with the full complexity of security. Customers do struggle sometimes to realize what the breadth of where Microsoft is, because let's be honest, we roll back 10 years ago, Microsoft Defender, you mentioned it, you would be laughed out of the room. But I think it's also that education, that realization that with the MITRE Ingenuity attacks, Microsoft are now the number one security provider in the world, like you say. But to be objective, and I have a few people around the room that might not be quite as Microsoft-centric, there's a few challenges adopting the Microsoft. I'm going to ask some questions that might be controversial or not, but the one that I would love to hear is cost. When somebody mentioned the license cost, we get that feedback. Oh, it's expensive. How much per user per month? How much per user per year? How did you overcome those challenges inside the organization?
That's always going to be a challenge. You know, the CFO is always going to be wanting to look at those figures and understand, well, we were already paying for us. Why are we paying more? It was already working. And I think it's you've got to restructure your thoughts behind this.
Yeah.
It's not extra cost, it's unused value. Okay.
Yes.
You've got to turn that thinking of license acquisition into risk reduction. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you can frame it like that, and especially with, like we say, with all the threats going on at the moment, I think it's much easier to sell that uplift when you look at the consequences and when you look at what you can be avoided by actually by doing that. So it's always going to be a challenge to overcome cost, but there's ways around that, I think.
And the other objections I always have is all your eggs in one basket, because obviously we talked about that holistic view, that single pane of glass, it all talking together. But then you also get the concern, well, what happens if you put everything with Microsoft? What happens if they have a bad day?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, if Microsoft have a bad day, we're all having a bad day, aren't we?
That's true.
So, yes, there's an argument of saying all your eggs in one basket, but you need to, again, reframe your thinking. That's the positive of it. All my eggs are in the one house that is seeing millions and millions of data points, that is investing billions and billions of pounds. Why not work with the platform that sees the most, that is advancing the most, and that can offer us the most?
Yes. No, that is very true. Now, HollywoodBowl has decided to work with a partner, Softworks. What would be quite interesting from your point of view is, why did you choose to do this and decide to work with Softworks?
So I get to pick you guys up now then.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, look, from my side, there was a historic relationship there with Softworks from a previous position that I worked in. I got to establish a relationship with one of your account managers, Nick, who's hiding around somewhere here. But that to me kind of really helped me when I was looking in HollywoodBowl to who I want to partner with my security, because I don't think of myself as working with businesses. I work with people. Okay. That's how I've always thought. And why Softworks though is because you led your discussions with talking about threats, talking about opportunities. What you didn't do is talk about SKUs, right? You weren't acting as a reseller, you were acting as a risk reduction partner. Okay, and so for me, that kind of helped, have some really early wins and establish that trust. You showed me that value before a purchase order was asked for, and that's always going to go down well with the team as well. There's also the culture that mattered as well. I was looking for a partner that, operated on the same hours as me, for example. I didn't want a SOC that was offshore or off the clock. I wanted a team that I can engage with and that I know that I can reach out to at any point. I think the cultural point is a really big part to fit with. So it's a people first approach.
Yes.
And that's what I think is why I've gone with Softworks. So.
No, thank you very much, and I will say a big thank you to Nick afterwards. Now, I think for a lot of people who's starting on the journey or might be on the journey, why you're adopting this Microsoft first approach, what advice would you give them? What do you think they should consider as they're moving forward to, or if they're considering taking on a Microsoft first approach?
I think that one, I suppose it's understanding what your objectives are. What are your requirements? What are you trying to achieve? And looking at what you've got in place at the moment, is that doing it for you? Is it working? And if it's not, then what is your approach? What is your strategy? So yeah, it depends on what you're looking to get. To be honest with you, so yeah.
And that's fine. And I think you see, like you say, there's challenges of the amount of times I come across people already owning the products but still buying for multiple solutions. You think, one, you're not making the most use of it. Two, why spend the money twice? That is one of the ones that I see. And normally a good argument with the CFO that says we've got to reduce the budget, not or reinvest in other areas, get more for our money. They always like to see value. So no, that makes sense. Now, we had AI in the show. Everywhere you look at, even on our stand, it mentions AI. And I think, as I said, I bore people with the fact that I'm trying to get out of the trough of disillusionment with AI. because it's been hyped, but I think we've seen the realism. What would be interesting from your point of view, how are you looking at adopting AI, or where are you in the journey with Copilot? Is it something you're considering at the moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely is the answer. Of course we will be. You know, AI in the past year, you've absolutely seen an explosion of it in the industry. It's no longer a buzzword anymore. It is here, it is present, it is there for us to use, and it is about efficiency. It's about streamlining. Yes. You should take advantage of the tools that are there for you. You know, a lot is being invested into Copilot, security Copilot as well, and it's about, you know, to some extent setting it free on what you've got, realizing that potential of what it can do for you. But obviously, yeah, there is the concerns around AI, and I think certainly it's not something that you just want to just leap into straight away. You need to understand your environment first. Are you ready for AI?
Yeah.
Is your environment secure for AI? Is it going to give you what you actually need? So yeah, the answer is, of course, we are going to be using AI. We've got data, we have information.
Yes.
We want to enhance productivity for our teams, for our analysts, for everyone, you know. So yeah, we are going to see more AI being used, and I'm sure we're going to see it more natively integrated across ecosystems and into applications and services as well. What the future looks like, though, I mean, who knows? In the past year, we've seen huge advancements. What's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years now? I mean, I'd be hard to predict. I have no idea.
Absolutely. And we're just seeing with the new digital workplace study, they're predicting we're all going to be managing agents. No longer are we going to be developing agents, we'll be managing agents. So you'll be employing people who's going to make sure that agents are doing their jobs properly, which is interesting.
I think as long as there's still that human interaction there, that human layer is really important, I think. And there's a conception around AI that it's going to replace humans. And I don't think I believe that. I think it's going to streamline humans. It's going to improve them. It's going to help them be more efficient. I think there's always hopefully going to be a place for us to sit.
Well, I think I'll be retired by then, hopefully, before the machines come and take over completely. But I think what's interesting, you mentioned the security. You're on this journey with Microsoft. You've moved forward. You're in a good place to take advantage of the Copilot with the data security. But what is quite interesting is you mentioned you're on this journey. What's next? Where are you going next? What's the next challenge for Dan and HollywoodBowl?
I suppose there's a couple of things, really. I mean, for myself, security is a heartbeat. Okay, it's a continuous evolution. So that's always going to be what's next for us. Is what is next? What are we going to do next to respond? What are we going to improve with? But in terms of what is initially kind of on the horizon, is unlocking more of that potential for ourselves as well. Purview is on the cards for us now to really understand our data, understand DLP, put in some controls, sensitivity, really improve e-discovery and stuff, and utilize again what we've got sitting there that we know that we can ramp up more with,
Well, you just mentioned governance, risk and compliance, and a few of the people are already running for the hills from a point of view, but we get that. It is that next frontier. We're seeing data because everybody's got the security, the plumbing sorted out from, as I like to call it, the endpoint security. But we are seeing that the data is the next frontier. How do we protect it? And what was interesting, I read a stat the other week that more than 50% of all AI projects was abandoned last year because of security concerns where they couldn't secure the data, they couldn't guarantee the data. And I think that is the challenge we're going to see. And we even see Microsoft are focusing more on around the information. How do we keep it secure? Because that is actually what's important. Yes, operational is important, but less breaches are happening. I think I saw a stat that 92% of all encryption breaches happens from unmanaged devices. So as you mentioned, you're managing your devices, so that risk is reduced. But it's what is that next step? But I think that was very useful. Hopefully I've inspired everyone around the room, and you've inspired everyone around the room to adopt Microsoft first. But Dan will be around. Feel free to ask questions or come and have a chat. As I say, fountain of knowledge. He always claims he doesn't, but he has it in place. He's been on the journey, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Thank
you very much. Cheers.